Your mind is being silenced, and the attack begins inside your own brain. While you brush your teeth, drink tap water, or spend hours surrounded by Wi-Fi, a small gland at the center of your brain, known by ancient civilizations as the third eye, is systematically being deactivated. And this is no accident. It's part of a calculated plan to keep you disconnected, numbed, spiritually and mentally blind. Why do you feel tired and empty, sensing that something essential has been lost? Because it has. This video reveals the secret that the global elite, from politicians to billionaires and members of occult orders, have kept under lock and key for over a century. The true power of your pineal gland. What you're about to see is so unsettling that it's been censored, ridiculed, and labeled a conspiracy theory, so no one would dare investigate. While 99% of the population remains in a state of induced slumber, a silent minority uses this knowledge to access higher realities, develop psychic abilities, and transcend the limits of human perception. If you keep watching, you'll discover what was never disclosed to you. Hidden documents, secret rituals, and symbols that lie in plain sight. None of this is a coincidence. In just a few minutes, you'll gain access to the same code that the enlightened ones have used for centuries to control the collective awakening. Everything you were taught about reality, spirituality, and the human mind is about to crumble.
The dim light that follows sunset often brings a mix of feelings. In many societies, this nighttime window is synonymous with rest and recovery, but there's historical and scientific evidence hinting at something deeper going on. It's not unusual to hear people describe strange or curious phenomena between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. when the pineal gland plays a starring role in the brain's center. This tiny structure may seem insignificant in size, yet it sparks questions about possible hidden activities happening while most folks either drift off to sleep or dive into silent dreams. Some people find it odd to give attention to such a small part of the body, but this organ has intrigued minds throughout various eras. Ancient Egyptian texts reference a symbol many link to the pineal gland, the eye of Horus. For priests of that time, it was more than just a decorative icon. It carried a symbolic message suggesting that this specific point in human anatomy had some connection to intangible planes. Later, medieval thinkers floated the idea that the pineal might serve as a bridge between spirit and matter, though they couldn't settle on the practical impact of that belief. Curiosity persists in modern times, even though much of the scientific community frames the topic in strictly physiological terms, focusing on regulating hormones like melatonin. Still, spiritual experiences and mystical accounts continue to pop up, hinting that there might be more than just a simple sleep-wake mechanism at play. It's not about dogmatically claiming that the pineal gland is a portal to higher dimensions, but rather about acknowledging that, in many studies, it's cast in the role of a sort of nighttime conductor. And this is where the period between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. emerges as crucial. Melatonin peaks, the body reorganizes itself, and some people report heightened clarity or a sense of expanded awareness. Historians and anthropologists researching ancient cultures often find striking similarities in stories about how the body functions during the darkness. Many civilizations viewed the start of the night, typically right around 10 p.m., as a transition moment. They didn't just talk about rest, but also described possible contact with subtler realms. Modern science, for its part, explains that high melatonin levels encourage cellular repair and prepare the metabolism for the next day. The tension between a purely scientific viewpoint and a more mystical perspective fuels debate and piques the interest of anyone wanting to find out if there's really something magical about this time frame, or if it all comes down to a quirky biochemical coincidence. History shows that the pineal gland, often called the third eye, has long kept an air of mystery that draws both fascination and skepticism. Descartes theorized that it might be the precise point where the mind and body intersect, naming it the seat of the soul. Various religious traditions refer, in symbolic language, to the importance of an inner eye capable of seeing truths that ordinary eyes cannot. Even so, medicine emphasizes that on a practical level, the hormone melatonin, produced by the pineal gland, synchronizes our circadian rhythms, the alternation of day and night that shapes our internal clock. While the physiological basis is clear, we can't ignore the fact that mystical experiences tied to this gland still endure and even resurface in different modern movements, ranging from meditation practices to parascientific investigations. Another noteworthy point is the production of other substances, besides melatonin, during that same time frame. Neurochemicals like arginine vasotocin and serotonin affect mood, sleep quality, and even pain perception. The hormonal orchestra that unfolds in the body from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. creates prime conditions for restoration and mental calm, which, according to esoteric traditions, may facilitate an opening to more subtle states of consciousness. Even without unanimous scientific confirmation, personal accounts of transcendent feelings or lucid dreams continue to pile up. Why all the secrecy, or at least so little interest in making this information common knowledge? One plausible explanation is that modern society is deeply hooked on screens and artificial lighting, which can mask or reduce the impact of these physiological processes. We often hear talk about the importance of unplugging before bedtime, but rarely do people go into the deeper aspect of that habit. Perhaps the consequences of ignoring the body's natural rhythm, mainly directed by the pineal gland during its peak hours, go beyond just feeling tired. They might include missing out on states of perception that many would consider valuable. Studies in the field of sleep neuroscience show that failing to get proper rest during these hours tends to create cumulative effects over time. Psychological disorders, irritability, difficulty concentrating, and even a higher risk for autoimmune diseases. Since the pineal gland so decisively manages the production of restorative hormones, it strengthens the argument that messing up these cycles doesn't just disturb sleep. It may have deeper implications for quality of life, including how each person processes the world around them. Still, we need to consider the many contexts in which people don't have the opportunity to align with this nighttime cycle. Shift work, late-night obligations, and even cultural patterns that celebrate nighttime parties or events can fragment one's rest. This raises the question of how much our modern routine helps or hinders the natural functioning of the pineal gland, and whether there are workable strategies to fix or at least minimize that disruption. This opening section aims to highlight the importance of looking more carefully at what happens inside the body when the lights go out and the clock nears that 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. window. Far beyond a mere anatomical curiosity, the pineal gland emerges as a central piece in discussions about well-being, spirituality, mental balance, and for some, even phenomena that go beyond rational understanding. One thing's for sure, throughout history, society has always been somewhat mesmerized by the mysteries of the night. Whether through purely physical processes or more subtle outcomes, this enigmatic gland continues to fire the imagination of anyone willing to take a closer look. Numerous ancient civilizations recorded observations linking the pineal gland to a kind of inner sight. In Egypt, one of the oldest cultures with enduring records, the Eye of Horus stands out on temple and pyramid walls. There are multiple interpretations, but one line of study connects this image to the pineal gland's location, noting how certain cross-sections of the brain resemble a rudimentary eye. Priests at the time believed this inner eye granted access to what can't be perceived through ordinary means. Nighttime ceremonies in sacred spaces reinforced the idea that silence and darkness fostered a direct link to subtler forces. this viewpoint wasn't limited to Egypt. Among the Greeks, there were myths that mentioned the potential for visions accessible only in trance states, usually brought on in the deep hours of the night. Later, in medieval Europe, the quest for a bridge between matter and spirit reignited the debate over whether there was a specific place in the body where the soul could dwell or manifest. Medieval philosophers drew on theological traditions, but also studied texts from Islamic, Jewish, and pagan sources, which often referenced an invisible eye. In the Renaissance period, René Descartes stands out. He famously described the pineal gland as the principal seat of the soul, reflecting a line of thought that mind-body interactions occurred in that exact spot. Today, this concept is considered outdated by mainstream science, but it was a historical milestone. It attempted to give a logical explanation, although laced with metaphysical assumptions, to phenomena that had puzzled scholars for centuries. Descartes wasn't the only one to examine the pineal gland closely, but his philosophical influence helped spread the idea that this tiny structure had a unique quality that transcended its mere physical form. The 20th century offered fresh approaches. Gradually, neurophysiology labs identified melatonin, recognizing the pineal gland as central to regulating our circadian rhythm. Books and scientific articles stopped calling it the seat of the soul and instead emphasized the hormonal role and the biological importance of darkness for proper bodily functioning. It was as if the aura of mysticism had given way to a more tangible scientific basis. Still, esoteric traditions continued to insist that the pineal gland did more than just regulate sleep. They believed it enabled communication with dimensions beyond the physical, via vibrations or intuitive insights. From that perspective, efforts emerged to unite science and spirituality. While scientists discussed neuroreceptors, brainwave frequencies, and chemical secretions, practitioners of Eastern schools such as Hinduism and Buddhism linked these processes to the activation of the Ajna chakra or the Sahasrara, both associated with extrasensory perception and enlightenment. Ancient texts describe meditative states in which individuals feel such a profound expansion of consciousness that it supposedly transcends the usual limits of reasoning. Combining these references, a cultural tapestry emerges in which the pineal gland has never really been neutral. It has consistently stirred curiosity, prompting theories that foresee some degree of communication portal between humans and the transcendent. In certain historical periods, religious leaders outlawed any mention of a third eye, labeling such ideas as heretical. Conversely, other societies openly celebrated it, making it a symbol of wisdom and spiritual clarity. Contemporary researchers striving for neutrality tend to highlight the lab discoveries. They discuss how the pineal gland in some animal species is photosensitive and can function as a sort of parietal eye that detects direct light. In humans, that evolutionary vestige might have moved inward, maintaining only hormonal functions. Even so, some scientists wonder if this is truly an inoperative leftover from evolution, or if it harbors hidden potentials not yet fully understood. Religious disagreements also come into play. Certain Christian groups link the good eye, mentioned in Scripture, to inner purity, without implying a physical connection to the pineal gland. Other Christian circles, more open to symbolic readings, argue that this reference might secretly point to the third eye. Meanwhile, Middle Eastern and Far Eastern traditions have their own narratives about a concealed spot in the head that grants access to divine wisdom. All these perspectives merge into a centuries-long debate, with no definitive, all-encompassing conclusion. Delving into these historical roots and cultural references shows how the pineal gland merges diverse ways of interpretation. It's not just a topic for medical study, but also an archetype of an inward quest, a link to something beyond daily life. No wonder some folks are captivated or skeptical when they hear that this gland could enable telepathy or mystical rapture. To some, it's pure make-believe. To others, it's the legacy of ancient traditions that knew how to see far beyond the obvious. The most widely known fact about the pineal gland nowadays concerns the production of melatonin. This hormone is crucial for tuning the body's internal clock, making sure bodily functions align with cycles of light and darkness. As night deepens, something in the brain senses the drop in light and signals the pineal gland to release this substance that promotes sleep. That explains why many people feel drowsy after dark, and conversely, refreshed by morning. But melatonin isn't the only piece of this puzzle. Studies show that the pineal gland also secretes compounds like arginine vasotosin, which can help modulate pain and deepen restorative sleep. Plus, it interacts with serotonin, a neurotransmitter often linked to feelings of well-being. Altogether, these substances influence mood, energy levels, and mental clarity. When nighttime takes its natural course, free from overly bright lamps or continuous exposure to electronic devices, the hormonal and neurotransmitter orchestra tends to function smoothly, providing not only physical rest, but also emotional balance. There's a threshold, however, where physiology brushes up against what some traditions call transcendence. Certain experiments investigate the presence of microcrystals of apatite inside the pineal gland, exploring their possible piezoelectric properties. This would mean these crystals might react to electromagnetic fields, generating tiny electrical charges. Though there's no scientific consensus on the practical significance, some research teams theorize that in states of deep relaxation, the pineal could pick up or emit signals beyond ordinary senses. In mystical circles, this possibility is considered an explanation for episodes of telepathy, clairvoyance, or other so-called extrasensory phenomena. Meanwhile, the academic world proceeds with caution. They don't deny the interesting physical properties of these crystals, but they do say there's insufficient evidence to claim they make the mind transcend the physical realm. The gap in understanding, however, fuels curiosity and keeps the debate wide open. Another important physiological factor is pineal calcification, a process that typically accelerates with age and, in some cases, is tied to a drop in melatonin production. Some studies associate fluoride intake, dietary habits, and pollutant exposure with higher levels of calcification, potentially harming sleep quality and hormonal balance. In spiritual traditions, this hardening of the third eye symbolizes a diminished sensitivity to subtler realities. Body detox practices, a balanced diet, and reducing harmful chemicals are frequently cited as ways to keep the pineal unblocked. Hence, hormonal functioning isn't just a data point in a clinical chart. It seems to be linked to feelings of well-being, creativity, and even those subjective experiences people describe in moments of deep introspection. Choosing to honor or ignore the natural rhythm of night reflects how we care for our own health, and perhaps how far we're willing to explore life's less obvious aspects. Even for those who remain skeptical about spiritual functions, it's hard to deny the importance of balanced sleep for cognitive and emotional performance. From this perspective, the window from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. stands out as prime time for the body's self-restoration. This is when the body typically handles cellular repairs and fine-tunes the immune system. Also, more vivid dreams often occur during the deeper stages of sleep or REM phases, which peak in roughly this same time frame. Within schools of thought that blend spirituality and neuroscience, it's argued that certain dream experiences are more than mere brain constructions, they might be genuine encounters with unknown layers of the psyche, and the pineal gland, as the night's conductor, is the critical mechanism enabling such experiences. It's worth emphasizing that none of this demands adherence to any specific religion. Understanding physiological functions and their possible mystical extensions can simply be viewed as a multifaceted human phenomenon. Some healthcare professionals recommend relaxation and meditation techniques not as esoteric practices, but as clinical tools to improve sleep, reduce stress, and consequently enhance pineal performance. What many ancient traditions taught through symbols and rituals is now paralleled by medical advice on sleep hygiene and mental well-being. Taking all this into account, it becomes clear that what happens in the brain during the overnight hours goes way beyond simply powering down. The pineal gland appears as a meeting place of scientific boundaries and spiritual curiosity, presenting itself at once as a vital biological organ and a possible key to deeper consciousness. Yet maintaining an investigative outlook is essential, recognizing the gaps in our current understanding while also noting a growing body of evidence that underscores the value of exploring this gland in greater depth. Research on the pineal gland has gone through many phases, and the contemporary world offers a wide range of studies, from clinical trials to anecdotal reports. Journals like the Journal of Pineal Research publish practical findings on melatonin, showing how a lack of it can lead to immune problems and mood disorders. We know that overly lit urban environments at night can disrupt the body's natural circadian rhythm, resulting in chronic fatigue and even depression. Healthcare professionals often recommend cutting down on exposure to bright light after a certain hour to help restore melatonin production. There are also bolder lines of study, like experiments monitoring how pineal appetite crystals respond to controlled electromagnetic fields. Though they're cautious, some researchers acknowledge finding variations that might point to an unknown sensory function. For those who believe in the third eye, this indicates that, in certain circumstances, there may be a way to pick up subtle frequencies from the environment. The mainstream scientific community, however, calls for more rigorous data and protocols before accepting such conclusions. Another set of inquiries looks into potentially psychoactive substances produced in the pineal gland or in conjunction with other brain areas. Some authors connect these substances to mystical or visionary states, like those described in intense meditation. While the topic is controversial, certain research suggests that nighttime hours, specifically between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., coincide with peaks in brain activity that, under certain conditions, could trigger experiences resembling transcendence. For spiritual researchers, this is the scientific backing they've been waiting for to validate the practice of dimly lit solitude or sacred vigils. The debate becomes more heated regarding subjective experiences like telepathy or sensing distant events. There are no widely accepted studies that confirm such abilities, yet many historical and contemporary accounts share a curious pattern. People often describe these experiences when they're in a deeply relaxed state, typically late at night. It's a fact that the human brain still holds many secrets, and that neuroscience, although advanced, hasn't fully tapped every aspect of cognitive and perceptual potential. Those who remain skeptical highlight the absence of consistent lab reproducibility, while enthusiasts see that as proof there are layers of consciousness still undiscovered. Progress in these debates also faces institutional roadblocks. In some academic circles, any interest in topics bordering on spirituality is met with suspicion, almost like reverting to pre-scientific mysticism. Conversely, spiritual and esoteric groups may dismiss scientific attempts at simplifying their experiences, saying science can't explain everything. The dilemma is how to reconcile two seemingly different worldviews that might actually complement each other. If the pineal gland contains microcrystals sensitive to external stimuli, what sort of experiences might that make possible? Could ancient tales about an inner eye be rooted in actual phenomena we just don't fully understand yet? We should note that not all findings promise earth-shattering breakthroughs. Many studies on the subject end up inconclusive or show weak links between the pineal gland and extrasensory phenomena. Scientific skepticism has its place, demanding evidence and preventing unfounded hypotheses from being touted as absolute truths. On the other hand, being too conservative can stifle more creative research endeavors, limiting exploration in unorthodox fields. This balance between curiosity and rigor has gradually shaped the current inquiry into the pineal gland. The topic's online popularity sometimes causes confusion. Techniques advertising instant pineal activation to give you psychic powers in a matter of days attract criticism from both medical professionals and more traditional spiritual practitioners. The desire for immediate results clashes with approaches emphasizing patience, discipline, and gradual body-mind integration. It's become a market that exploits fascination with the unknown, selling miraculous solutions without solid proof or theoretical backing. Despite the noisy landscape, serious initiatives continue. Universities and research institutes allocate funding to chronobiology projects, examining the pineal gland's central role, some even sponsored by scientific funding agencies. Each fresh piece of data clarifies how the body reacts to light, sleep patterns, and diet. While many labs don't explicitly connect these discoveries to spiritual potential, they do reveal that the body's natural cycles are more intricate and subtle than previously assumed. And these nuances spark intriguing ideas about the reach of human consciousness, especially during the hours when the outside world grows quiet and the body surrenders to the deep night. How each person manages their schedule directly impacts the pineal gland's functions. In many meditation and yoga traditions, it's recommended to practice breathing and concentration exercises around dawn or during the pre-dawn hours, when the city is still and hormonal activity supports internal focus. People who follow this lifestyle observe that the mind at that time tends to slip into slower brainwave states, opening up space for inward insights. Even folks who aren't into mysticism can benefit from a routine that honors uninterrupted nighttime sleep, as improved mental and physical health is well documented. However, much of society is out of sync with these rhythms. Working late shifts, constant exposure to artificial lighting, and late-night entertainment routines can flip the internal clock upside down. The most obvious result is lower productivity and a feeling of never-ending fatigue, but there are subtler consequences too. Disrupting the pineal gland's balance might lead to emotional problems and compromise healthy cognitive processes, according to chronobiology experts. For those considering the spiritual angles, that imbalance might block any perceptive abilities that could surface under better circumstances. Some esoteric traditions stress the concept of decalcifying the pineal gland, arguing that excessive fluoride intake and environmental pollution speed up the gland's crystallization. Although scientific studies on this are still limited, it's a fact that the pineal gland does calcify more over time and under certain metabolic imbalances. In this light, diets high in antioxidants, proper hydration, and cutting back on harsh chemicals figure into integral health recommendations, potentially helping keep the pineal in solid working shape. The idea of pursuing deeper self-knowledge by merging physical and mental wellness practices resonates across multiple spiritual lineages. Some yoga schools suggest focusing attention on the frontal area, strengthening the bond with the third eye. Shamanic philosophies describe nocturnal rituals, emphasizing introspection, as the key to tapping into greater wisdom. What's remarkable is the common thread suggesting that the hours between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. are special, as the body shifts into rest mode and the mind can reach different levels of perception, even if mainstream science doesn't always recognize it. This self-discovery aspect crosses religious boundaries. Psychologists who use humanistic and transpersonal methods see potential in disciplined sleep schedules and meditation techniques to promote mental health and unlock creativity. According to certain authors, this unlocking can include profound insights about one's existence, prompted by the reduced external stimulus. In this context, the pineal gland appears as a physiological element that makes room for powerful subjective experiences, bringing to life the teachings that ancient cultures preserved in their rituals. From a societal standpoint, recognizing the importance of this nighttime cycle could benefit public health policies. Emphasizing quality sleep might alleviate anxiety symptoms in big cities, reduce dependence on prescription sleeping meds, and potentially curb mental health issues. Unfortunately, the conversation around this is still pretty low-key, partly because our production-driven culture often demands maximum availability, pushing people to sacrifice rest. When people hear expanding your consciousness, some think of supernatural phenomena totally disconnected from the real world. But others argue that such expansion can simply mean achieving greater emotional clarity, empathy, and an innovative mindset. That can arise when the mind functions in sync with natural rhythms, allowing the pineal gland to regulate brainwaves tied to calmness and creativity properly. The end result is a more balanced daily life, with folks feeling more grounded and less scatterbrained. More controversial lines of thought argue that this kind of inner harmony threatens religious institutions that encourage dependence on external rituals. It also bothers industries profiting from unrestricted nightlife. Indeed, some point to a form of institutional silence on the topic, or a lack of widespread campaigns promoting the benefits of well-regulated sleep, seeing it as a tactic to keep the population asleep in a metaphorical sense. Conspiracy theories aside, what stands out is the proven effectiveness of good nighttime habits for overall health, and for spiritual seekers, it's a chance to tap into deeper layers of themselves. The main takeaway from this section is the realization that choosing whether to respect or disregard the body's wisdom, orchestrated by the pineal gland, has real outcomes. People who commit to a more natural sleep schedule, steering clear of bright lights and screens after 10 p.m., often report improvements ranging from better physical energy to a sense of inner peace. Possibly, these positive changes are the common ground where strict physiology meets mystical perspectives. Both sides agree that the nighttime, that silent stretch when the pineal gland is at peak performance, can offer a kind of healing that goes way beyond ordinary rest. These days, the pineal gland occupies a fascinating spot in our collective mindset. Recognized by science as a vital hormonal regulator and seen by many as a gatekeeper to perceptual realms that reason alone can't fully explain. Though centuries ago it was a target of philosophical speculation, it has now become a focus of research on melatonin, sleep, and overall health. Yet numerous spiritual schools still insist that, by caring for this region, humans reclaim their ability to see beyond the obvious, something our ancestors might have grasped instinctively. In this sense, the window between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. remains a kind of mystery zone. That's when the pineal gland hits its peak, orchestrating physical repair and, according to some testimonies, paving the way for more intense inner experiences. It's not about a mandatory mystical practice, but rather a physiological event, open to varied interpretations depending on the observer's background, scientific, spiritual, or a bit of both. no matter the viewpoint, there's a shared understanding that ignoring these precious hours can lead to imbalances on multiple levels. The pineal gland's importance as a center of self-regulation reinforces the notion that caring for the body means more than just diet and exercise. There's an invisible yet crucial element in aligning ourselves with Earth's rhythms and respecting signals modern life often overlooks. This includes watching the lighting in your environment, easing off electronics at night, allowing your mind to wind down before sleep, and possibly incorporating meditation or deep relaxation. None of these practices guarantee mystical visions, but they typically go a long way toward improving quality of life. At the same time, many people wonder how far these tips can go in revealing hidden aspects of the human mind. The claim that the pineal gland might act as an antenna for non-physical realities is met with skepticism, yet it remains intriguing. The discovery of crystal structures sensitive to magnetic fields leaves the door open for ideas that would have seemed outlandish a few decades ago. Some draw parallels between psychic phenomena and fine-tuned pineal function, suggesting that certain meditative states might trigger interactions between neurons and external energy fields. The ultimate question, reflected in many traditions, is how far is each person willing to go in order to know themselves truly? Taking care of the pineal gland is more than just practicing good sleep habits. It's an invitation to try out new ways of perceiving the world, whether through creative flashes or sensations that defy normal explanation. For many, this journey reveals a broader spirituality that isn't bound by rigid dogma and is rooted in a direct engagement with their own essence. Others may simply enjoy the greater balance and well-being that come from a physiology that supports healing and upkeep of a healthy life. The biggest strength of these discussions is how they bring together seemingly opposite perspectives. The existence of a strong hormonal component doesn't negate the traditional view of subtler dimensions. Likewise, acknowledging potential transcendent experiences doesn't cancel out the need for scientific validation and careful methodology. The pineal gland stays right at that crossroads, reminding us that humans are neither purely mechanical beings nor solely ethereal spirits. We're a complex blend grounded in the earth, yet potentially connected to something beyond the usual senses. So, the takeaway from this video is a call to reflect. If nocturnal processes hinge on the optimal functioning of this specific gland, should we really ignore them or brush them aside as fringe topics? Some argue that humanity has largely forgotten the value of those hours when night takes over, and the pineal gland rules our internal chemistry. That forgetfulness might come at a cost in terms of physical health, mental stability, and for those who believe in it, spiritual depth. On the flip side, honoring these nightly windows can lead to profound rewards, possibly changing the way we view our entire existence. Respecting the cycle of light and dark, reducing light pollution, and making room for silence aren't difficult tasks, but they do demand a mental shift away from the culture of non-stop activity. Those who give this alignment a try often notice clear benefits, from feeling more energetic in the morning to a sense of connection with the mystery of life. And if the pineal gland truly is the guardian of more refined perceptions, maybe this is the key to discoveries science hasn't yet catalogued, but that, on some level, our ancient civilizations seem to grasp. Every change begins with realizing your role as a co-creator, and the only way to connect with this divine intelligence is through meditation. We've developed a set of audio tools to help you reach this higher state of consciousness. To find out more and get instant access, click the link on the screen or in the comments. If this video resonated with you, comment below. It made sense to me.